Okay, so let's begin this meeting of the Human Rights and Equity Commission. I'd like to start with roll call. Shelley, would you mind doing roll call for me?
Happy to. Good afternoon, Human Rights and Equity Commission members. For today's meeting, we have a roll call. Crow Crosswhite is excused. Lamar Davis is excused. Adrian De La Rosa.
Connecting audio, it looks like.
Yes, I see his name. There we go. Adrian, good to see you. Doing roll call. Olivia Dudo.
Here.
Elizabeth Johnson.
Present.
Okay. Melissa Kamanya.
Present.
Mo Mitchell excused. Jody Safford.
I'll excuse Jerry Stafford.
Jody's here.
Great, thanks. Shireen Solomon excused. Hong Sherry Tran.
Here.
Thank you. Joseph Valdez. Kay Vincent.
Here.
And Jasmine Wilder.
Present.
Just also like to recognize that we have Councilor Schenkelberg and Perkins here with us, as well as Assistant City Attorney Ian Lighthizer, Juan Almeida from IT, and Kayla Duty from our taking minutes as our Assistant City Recorder. And then also Victor, Rosie, Mary, and Christine, thank you for being here to provide your interpretation services for this meeting. Thanks. Back to you, Chair Wilder.
All right, excellent. Well, as we start this meeting, I want to take a brief moment to address the killing of Barry Washington Jr. Obviously, this is incredibly painful and emotional and frankly unjustified homicide in the city of Bend. And I just really want to not only take a moment to recognize his loss of life in our community, but I also would like to address what I feel is a communications breakdown as far as the city of Bend goes. And I feel I'm disheartened by both the city of Bend and the media, the community's media's response currently, which explicitly leaves out race and the racial implications of Barry Washington's death. I would like to see the Human Rights and Equity Commission also draft a statement, which we can discuss further soon, that better embodies what needs to be addressed here and the importance of how we need to communicate to our city. I think it's a really dangerous precedent for it disenfranchises the BIPOC community at large for us to not bring this up. And it also, undercuts, whether consciously or unconsciously undercuts the city's commitment to equity. And I think for HRAC itself, it presents an opportunity for us to examine the systems that we exist in and how they affect each and every single one of us, and in what ways there is not a shared equitable and equal experience for the different citizens of Central Oregon. So I am concerned on a couple of different levels. I think we can discuss that in greater detail. Right now, I'm going to ask that we have just a moment of silence to recognize that loss and to be aware and sit with the emotions that this tragedy has brought to each and every one of us and the ways that it affects each and every one of us, our families and our community at large. And then as soon as that moment of silence comes to a close, I will motion that we bring in, that we add drafting a statement or discussing a statement from the Human Rights and Equity Commission that will be a little more comprehensive and definitely include the racial implications that this case, that needs to be recognized about this case. So if we can now just bow our heads for that moment of silence. Thank you, commissioners. I would like to motion that the Human Rights and Equity Commission adds to today's agenda, drafting an official statement about this incident. Would anyone like to second my motion?
Second.
Excellent. Is there something else that we need to do? I know that we might not be super on top of the structure here. So Ian or Shelley, give me direction if there's something else we need to do to add that to the agenda.
This is Ian. I don't think so. I mean, I think there's consensus, if not unanimity, on the body that this is something that should be discussed. So I think you can consider it added.
Olivia has her hand up.
Follow-up question to that, can we leverage any city channels to post this statement?
I'm going to pause really quick because I have details on that for you. So when we launch into that, we will. I would like to go ahead and take a moment and do our land acknowledgement at this time, and then we will add in the drafting and the details behind creating this statement from HREC.
I'll go ahead and read the land acknowledgement. The Human Rights and Equity Commission would like to thank the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs for offering this land acknowledgement for us to read during our meetings. We encourage everyone watching to learn more about the Indigenous people whose homelands we occupy by visiting the warmsprings.gov website or by visiting the Warm Springs Museum to experience and celebrate the culture of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. Also encouraged to donate to support clean water for Warm Springs. The City of Bend land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the beautiful land known as Bend, Oregon, north to the Columbia River is the original homelands of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. The Confederated Tribes ceded this land in the Treaty of 1855 while retaining regular and customary hunting, fishing, and gathering rights. The Wanalama, Warm Springs, Wascow, and Northern Paiute people inhabited this area in certain seasonal times that clearly established their presence. It is also important to note that the Klamath Trail ran north through this region to the Great Celelo Falls trading grounds. This trade route expanded the impact of commerce between tribal nations. We acknowledge and thank the original stewards of this land. It is our hope that guests continue to honor and care for this land. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay, let's also quickly get out of the way the approval of minutes. And then I'm wondering if it would be smart to go to public comment or instead for us to speak about our draft and then go to public comment. So let's do approval of the minutes from our meeting on 8/25/21, I believe is the date.
Correct.
Approved.
We did try to get those out earlier. I know I looked at them. Are we safe to, let's use the raise the hand feature. If you, do we have to motion this? I'm sorry. Do I need a motion to
Yeah.
approve?
Yeah, I think you start with, does
Okay.
anybody have any amendments or corrections to the minutes that were shared? And then you go to, do you have a motion to approve the minutes?
Excellent. Thank you, Shelley. Do we have any amendments or corrections to the minutes that have been shared? Okay, then I motion to approve the minutes from 8/25/21.
Second.
Thank you. And then at this time, looks like I'm going to make the decision of allowing potentially more individuals to join for public comment. So let's get right into discussing the statement that we would like to put out. At this time, I would welcome not only commissioners, but also our city council members and our different city staff members to join into this discussion as well. And I guess I can begin, so let's start.
Sorry, Melissa had their hand up.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you. Regarding our comment, the timing is just so tragic that we just as a city recognized Welcoming Week. And this young man and his family didn't have a chance to have that experience and be welcomed. And so if there's a way that we can include some kind of language to the fact that it's something that we're striving for, we know we have work to do, but goodness, just, I don't even have the right words. I'm quite sad.
I agree. And let me just, so that we are being effective with our use of time, what I would like to see, and this is just a suggestion I'm going to throw out there, but I would like to see members of the HREC who serve on our subcommittee, not the entire subcommittee, I want less than a quorum, to volunteer to be drafting notes and to take the lead on getting this done for us, because we'll just basically have a discussion here now with everything, all the components that we want to see. But in order to move quickly, it'll be best to have a group of people who are less than a group of commissioners who are less than a quorum to jump on this initiative by us. So can we speak to that first?
Sherry has their hand up.
You can go, Olivia. You had yours before me.
I'm happy to write. I'm happy to take notes. I can start doing that now. I was more going to share the two components that I think must be part of this. Obviously, Jasmine already touched on race, clear identification that race was a driving factor in this conflict. And I think there needs to be a component about the privilege of gun usage for specific populations in Bend, i.e. white men being able to pull out guns in our streets. And if it's okay, I will add those two components as must-haves in the notes that I'm about to take now.
Is anybody having an issue with the plan that I put forth to have commissioners from the communications subcommittee take the lead on getting this drafted quickly? Joseph?
I just want to know how we know that race was a factor. I haven't read the police report. I don't know if we have access to that. Has anybody spoke with the police department or the DA's office specifically to see if that was a factor? Also, you know, I think it's just sort of putting the cart before the horse. And as far as guns, I mean, that's a whole nother debate to be had as well. I don't know how many people on this board own guns or have grown up around guns, but as a person that's grown up around guns, it's not the gun, it's the user of it. And people have fought for people's rights to own and bear arms. That's what this country was founded on. Freedom of speech, right to bear arms. And sort of the attack on guns now is sort of out of line in my point of view, and it's sort of typical when there is gun violence, how people do jump on that subject. If you look back in California, Ronald Reagan was the governor at the time, and he walked in and saw a bunch of armed people standing in the halls of the state of California, of Sacramento. And there was also school children. And because of that, he actually started passing gun legislation restricting minorities from owning guns and standing in the Capitol with guns while they were exercising their right. So as far as guns, that just goes down to a population. And I don't know, I have a different point of view and different
Joseph, I'm going to
perspective than
cut you
most
off
people.
really
So
quick because I'm going to need it to stay focused on the statement. Do you have an issue with the statement? Then you can go ahead and share those thoughts. I don't want to get into everybody's political, backgrounds.
I think that's the problem with
agree with
this
this
is we're not having an open discussion. We're having a dictatorship, and that's my problem with it.
What do you feel is being dictated to you?
Well, you just rolled your eyes just because I made a statement about it, and that's sort of the problem is nobody wants it. This forum should be a discussion amongst all of us representing different parts of the community where we all should be able to speak and sort of say what other people are thinking from our community that we do talk to and we do interact with. But sometimes it feels like this is it is biased. You don't want to hear my point of view, so you guys or people just want to turn it off. So you can go in and turn it off. I'll listen, go right ahead.
So do you have an issue with us creating a statement? I'm more than willing to have a discussion about what goes into the statement. I just want us to make sure that we're staying on message as far as, do we make a statement from HREC to the community at large about the death of Barry Washington Jr.? That is about the killing of Barry Washington Jr.
Do we even know the facts on it? I mean, I don't know the facts
do.
other than what they've shown on the media. I'd have no facts, like true facts. Do you have true facts from the police report or from eyewitnesses that were there?
Or from a DA? Yes, I do.
So you spoke with the DA's office, and he
have.
disclosed that, which is actually a compromise in the investigation, but that's fine.
So what, are you okay with us making a statement based on facts to the community at large? And I have no issue with discussing this.
So I would like to see the statement before it's actually written. I mean, because most likely it's going to have all of our names on it. And me personally, I don't feel comfortable putting my name on something I don't agree with. Whatever, it depends. I want to read the statement first.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move forward to create said statement, and then we can discuss whether people are okay with what goes into it at that time. Do I have anybody else who, let's see, starting out, Olivia, you are on.
No, sorry, Sherry's had their hand up.
Okay,
And
but
Elizabeth
Olivia,
too.
I want to make these notes. So Olivia,
Yes.
you are now drafting these notes.
Yeah, so I have notes around the topic of gun usage in the city of Bend, the topic of race when it comes to including that in the statement, and I have the topic of not all names being included in this statement if they do not support the statement.
That sounds like a very good option. There you go. Okay. Elizabeth, or is Elizabeth who's next? Or Sherry? Sherry, go ahead.
So like everyone's here is really, sad is not even the word right now. And I'm a little bit triggered. So sorry. I had to write this out. I had a feeling I was going to be a bit triggered and emotional. So just bear with me. I have been talking with community leaders and as our role in HREC is to make sure we are listening and speaking with the community. And so these were the notes I took. This is not my idea. I've been talking with local communities about how we can support families who have been harmed or worse, lost a loved one from violence or hate. We, HREC, need to make a collaborative effort to create a system for the city and Bend PD on how to support events like that, like what happened to Barry Washington Jr. This communication system or protocol will help Bend PD and the city on keeping the safety of the families of these deliberately harmed communities as priority. This will allow trusting communication with local organizations, access to meetings with mayors, city council people, chief of police, things like that, support with lodging, media, etc. If you've never had to experience teaching your kids how to survive in a white world where white folks feel the entitlement of owning your body, then it's really time to listen to BIPOC communities, because this is what we teach our kids and this is what we live through every day. I just ask that folks that have not experienced this to offer empathy, have some empathy, and make a shift to change. I hope to see HREC outside of the courthouse on October 5th. I really, really fully believe Barry would be alive if he were white. But that wasn't the case. So here we are now trying to discuss how to make the best approach to keep the safety of the family of the victims. The city says that we're going to do better. And this is like what Melissa was saying with whole welcoming week. We want to see the city doing better. And we need to know that the Bend police is having enough training to be able to recognize when racism is a factor when they are arresting someone. So I know this is just pretty much what Jasmine and Olivia was stating before, but this was more collaborative of speaking with community leaders and respecting what their wishes are, and also trying to not be triggered with everything that's going on. So those were my notes.
Elizabeth and then Ian, or Ian, do you feel like you have something that's timely that needs to be added right now?
Only thoughts on just process to aid the discussion, and that could happen sooner or it can happen at the end after you have the discussion. It's up to you.
I'm going to welcome you to go ahead and help us aid. I have a few notes from you, which I was going to cover, but go ahead and just get us started. And
okay, I'll offer it now just to try to aid the discussion. So typically a group like this, when you're trying to come up with a statement or a letter, you have maybe a couple of choices in how you do it. The most obvious one is that you come up with it during the meeting, during the public meeting, when you can all collaborate. That can be difficult when you have 7, 8, 9, 10, 13 people trying to come up with a statement in wordsmith. So that can be unwieldy. Another option is sometimes for the group, through a motion or with consensus, to delegate that task to a smaller group, which you alluded to, Jasmine. For that to work, I think everybody on the body has to be comfortable with it and confident in the product that small group is going to come up with. And I'm already hearing that may not be entirely the case here. So that makes the process of this pretty difficult if you're trying to delegate it to a small group, and suggest that it might make sense to come up with a statement if you want to do that with this whole group convened like you are now. That way everybody gets a chance to see it, to weigh in on it, say what they like about it, contribute to it, or say what they don't agree with if they have disagreements. Okay. One more point. One more thing. The corollary to that is if the group does delegate the work to a smaller group, often that work would then come back to the body as a whole at a subsequent meeting, so everybody could look at it, weigh in on it, and then the HREC as a whole could approve it, modify it. If time is of the essence and there's a sense that the HREC needs to get something out before the next meeting, that makes it difficult. There is an urgency to this. I also think it's may be really important to get right. And maybe if you delegate it to a group, having that group come back with what they worked on might make sense too. That's it.
Okay. I mean, I'm unwilling to scratch the small group idea, although I do think that we can discuss having this discussion here and now so that everybody feels included and everyone feels comfortable with the language and why. I guess I would encourage the entire commission to obviously maybe let people express their perspectives and points of view as far as what it contributes to the statement itself, and make sure that as long as we can keep that really tight, I personally am more than willing to allow this piece of the agenda to extend so that everyone feels comfortable with the language there. Is that in essence, Ian, what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, you can take as much time as you want to take. This is an important topic. I think the key decisions are, if there's going to be a small group that's going to be assigned to work on this, to be very clear about exactly who that consists of and who it doesn't, so that defined group of people can do the work. And then just have clear expectations as to whether that work product is going to come back to the group as a whole at a subsequent meeting, which would be the way it typically works. But if time is of the essence, that can be, sometimes that's not satisfactory if you want to get something done sooner.
Okay, weigh in here. Are we able to vote on whether do we have to have consensus, or is there a space for people to vote on what we want to have come out from here?
You need a majority of the group to decide a question, so it doesn't have to be unanimous, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, Elizabeth, did you have some thoughts that you wanted to bring?
Yeah, I mean, I commend those who have been able to stay much closer to this situation than I have. Kind of staying in touch with the community and being able to be out there and get some more information about this is really critical, right? But it's not something that I've done. I haven't been able to stay abreast of this for multiple different reasons. I do think that an acknowledgement is the very least that we could do as a commission. I also think that, it's a historical factor that BIPOC community has repeatedly been treated in a different manner than everyone else. And that also should be acknowledged. But I think I also feel some hesitation in just calling out a situation that I don't know the details on. So that was just kind of my piece. And I think, again, I just think, I feel like an acknowledgement is the minimum that we should put out. And I recognize that that could feel kind of not as strong of a position as what others may feel who have more information. But if I don't have that information to say that somebody, has done something for a specific reason, I don't know that firsthand. I can't, that's not an honest response from me. So I just wanted to make sure that was put out there. Thanks.
Would this commission benefit from taking a moment right now to run through the timeline of what we're talking about? Would that be helpful? Would we find that helpful? Jody, go ahead.
You're muted.
Oh, you would think after all these months that I would have this down by now. I think it's my way of resisting that we are still virtual, but anyway, that's my problem. So the only thing that I'm struggling with is we don't have the full commission here. So I'm uncomfortable endorsing a statement without the full commission. So I like your idea, Jasmine and team, about drafting something. I'm gonna have a hard time endorsing something without the full commission here.
Olivia?
Jose was before me.
Jose?
No, she can go ahead.
Since we are having some hesitation around the attendance here, I just want to clarify, can we assign people's names to coming up with a draft statement? And I guess, Ian, I'm looking at you. And then finalize that statement over either a shared document, like, G Suite or whatever, or email. Because I'm of the opinion that this cannot wait another day, hour, like the vigil is happening tonight. This needs to get out.
So short answer, no, not really, because that amounts to deliberating and collaborating outside of a public meeting. So that unfortunately presents a problem. What I might suggest is maybe if the group here tonight can come up with something that is maybe shorter and maybe more to the point in terms of an acknowledgement. Maybe that's an achievable task with the group. That I think there's probably enough commonality in people understanding the importance of this issue and wanting to acknowledge it, that you might be able to get consensus or even unanimity on something. And then maybe, and I will say that to me might be more appropriate, because as much information as is out there or people think they have, there is going to be more. There is going to be more because of the ongoing investigation. So it might make sense to consider focusing on an acknowledgement of the event and the importance tonight, and then maybe work on something more comprehensive over more time, and maybe something that came back to the HREC at a later meeting. That might be a way to do both.
Okay. And yeah, the word acknowledgement has been used quite a bit over the last couple minutes. And are we of the consensus that this should not have happened? Are we acknowledging that this is a murder? Like, I guess I need to understand what acknowledgement means.
Hi, this is Elizabeth. Sorry. I guess I kind of had brought up the acknowledgement verbiage initially, and I think that is exactly what I think. This should not have happened. This is, the whole situation, no matter what this person was, they should not have been murdered. Sorry. But I don't know that we can put forth calling out what those details are if I don't know them. But yeah, I think that's exactly right, Olivia. This should not have happened.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Joseph?
I think if you do something in a classy way, ultimately this should be coming from the city council and the mayor's office, not really us. I commend everybody for wanting to say something, but being specific, I think is only going to paint you into a corner if other facts come out in this case. And then are you going to do a retraction if you say something that's sort of inappropriate or wrong? I don't know if there's an attorney on staff that can sort of guide us through this, but I'll tell you what, as a person that's been around death a lot, it doesn't get any easier. A life is a life, and it doesn't matter what race you are and what color you are. We just lost 13 soldiers in Afghanistan. I have friends that died over there. So.
I feel like I need to be a little bit more clear for different commissioners about what we are talking about. We are talking about facts of a Black man, 22 years old, shot by a white man in Bend. That, there is racial implications to this case, and we wouldn't have to say anything more than that. We are not the Justice Department. We are not the DA. We will leave that up to them. There's no need for us to imply anything more than the facts of what happened. However, we do live in America. We do live in systems. We are the Human Rights and Equity Commission. This literally falls under our job description, under what we are created here to do. We're not here to bring oversight to the county, but we are in fact here to bring oversight to the city, law enforcement, and most importantly, the actual entire disenfranchised communities. That is why we are appointed.
What did law enforcement have to do with it other than investigate?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Specifically in this case, that's what we're specifically talking about. What did law enforcement have to do with it other than they're currently investigating?
My point is that the law enforcement falls under what we are here to, what we provide oversight for. So they did the arrest, they brought the charges, that the experience that the individual had.
You don't bring the charges. The DA's office brings the charges. The DA advises the officers how to charge.
So I would suggest that you go over the case a little bit more, but ultimately the police, the current charge of manslaughter is what they was arrested for. That's why he's out now. And yes, the DA will bring official charges later on, which I am more than willing to allow him to do.
How many ride-alongs?
I am in no way suggesting that we step outside our guidelines as a commission. I think that there's plenty of things that people would want us to do or have comment on that are outside of our purview, but I've already gone over this with the different people to know that we're within our parameters of who we're supposed to be as the Human Rights and Equity Commission. So I'm confident that we could present a statement that is not backing us into a corner, that is not having us to have any form of retraction. However, I do think it should be acknowledged that a Black man who is 22 years old died in our street. I think it matters. And I'm willing to stand by that. It's more than willing for it to be a hill that I die on here. And I'm comfortable with that. And I believe that leadership is comfortable with that as well. So at this point, the question is the Human Rights and Equity Commission okay? We're not going to do anything that is outside the parameters of what we're able to do, what's legal, what's right, what's correct, what has to do with that's factual. So I'm in no way suggesting that. I'm not I am, of course, feel very affected by this, but I'm a very pragmatic, critical thinker. I understand roles and positions and jobs that are supposed to be done. And I'm in no way suggesting that Human Rights and Equity Commission steps outside what our role is. Ian, I'm gonna let you jump in.
Thank you. So this is really a discussion for the HREC, but I'm going to offer this anyway. The things we do know, we know that a young Black man was killed in downtown Bend. Everybody agrees that was a tragedy, and I think everybody understands that makes people of color in Bend feel less safe, or maybe emphasizes the vulnerability that people feel. I also think you can take those things that I think probably everybody here agrees with and look at aspects of the HREC's empowering code, which includes tasks like working with the city to ensure that everybody knows that in Bend they can be treated with compassion and respect, regardless of race, ethnicity, place of origin, immigration status, or any other perceived or self-identified class or status. We know that this event makes that goal seem farther away. These are things that I think this group could probably agree on, and maybe acknowledge isn't strong enough a word, to Olivia's point, but I think with a little bit of focus, you could probably come to unanimous agreement on that, and at least get that on the record as a position of this group, whether that's an acknowledgement or a short statement that doesn't depend much on information that we may not have yet, or things that might change as the investigation proceeds and charges are brought. So I do think there are some things to say that are, I don't want to call them safe because they're so horrible that we have to say them or you have to say them, but I think there are some things that you could probably agree on pretty quickly if you focused there.
And I feel like that was the prior suggestion. In no ways was I ever communicating anything different. So I'm going to need people to give me the benefit of the doubt that I was never at any point suggesting that we put ourselves in a situation that is at all tenuous or questions our credibility as the Human Rights and Equity Commission. I am, however, suggesting that we do our job. Olivia?
Yeah, I was just gonna kind of get us back onto things that we can come to vote on or, consensus on for this shorter statement. The three elements that I have are: this should not have happened, someone should not have been murdered, and also a Black man was shot and killed in Bend. I also have a Black man was shot and killed by a white man in Bend. Can we get to some sort of vote or agreement that those three things can be part of this statement?
Can you repeat that one more time, Olivia? Thank you.
Yeah, here's what I've consolidated. This should not have happened. Someone should not have been killed in the streets of Bend. A Black man was shot and killed in the streets of Bend, or a Black man was shot and killed by a white man in the streets of Bend.
Thank you. When I listen to that, it seems very factual. So thank you.
I think my other thoughts are, frankly, we are not a high performing team yet, this group here. And this is a really tough, topic for this team to try and get to a high performing place. So I just want to acknowledge that it probably feels really hard and sticky right now since we don't all have that trust yet.
Melissa, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm in support of something along the lines of what Ian mentioned too, just tying in our goals in a way to remind the community that that's what we're here for, is to hear these things and be a mediator to the city. So something that ties in what our purpose is, I think would be helpful too.
The other thing I would just like to add, I know I didn't have my hand raised, but I just so appreciate that we're having this conversation. I'm uncomfortable in a good way, and we should be uncomfortable. And Jasmine and others who brought it forward, bring it forward. This feels like what we should be talking about and doing. So I don't like it. I don't like what happened. I don't like that we're having to have these conversations over and over and over before we've even arrived at this commission. So just thank you, Jasmine and others, for bringing it forward. I don't like it. Not because I don't like what happened. It's uncomfortable. And so just thank you for bringing it forward.
Olivia?
Just wondering if there would be any value in hearing from the public. Do we have anyone in queue, perhaps, that can crack the egg for us?
Currently, there is one caller in with public comment with their hand raised.
Okay, let's take a break. Let's take public comments. And we will just literally pause to have public comments as the section on our agenda, and then we can circle back to the statement.
Kayla, do you want to go ahead and take this part?
Yes, sorry, my computer just did something weird. Okay, good evening, commissioners. Good evening, Madam Chair. We have one caller, and the caller is Stephanie Van Krutwijk. Stephanie, I've given you the ability to unmute yourself. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Stephanie Van Klitwick. I'm a Bend native. I graduated from Mountain View High School back in 1987, and I am a business owner here in our community. I would like to first, Jasmine, say to you, on behalf of, I think, a lot of people that are watching this right now, that I really apologize for Mr. Valdez's behavior and comments to you, over talking you, and please don't ever feel that you need to defend yourself or let anybody know of your credentials. This is far more than some sort of superficial bar fight that happened down on Oregon Avenue, Mr. Valdez. This individual, we know, we have the facts that he has made repeated comments, racial slurs on his page. We know that the media, as well as Bend Police Department, has not portrayed or relayed the events as they occurred. We know that the Central Oregon Peacekeepers and the Central Oregon Diversity Project have actually, prior, as they do to Bend Police, have been investigating this and do actually have video footage. I am sure that within the next 24 hours, you too, Mr. Valdez, will be more informed. It's interesting to me that this commission was formed 4 days after the quote unquote melee that happened last year up at Pilot Butte. That is something that I actually was charged for. My charges were dropped, by the way, for interfering with a police officer, because what came out is that the Bend police actually allowed it all to happen. So when, Jasmine, you say that we need to have extreme oversight over the Bend Police Department, I tell you that as a community, for a lot of people that I know, we support this fully. We have had considerable concerns since Chief Krantz came over here from Portland, where he allowed a lot of things to go down, and they're happening here. I hope that you use your voices for the goodness and well-being of this community. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we have no more callers.
Excellent.
I should have an opportunity to respond to that. I think that's sort of inappropriate because I don't know all the facts. I'm not claiming to know all the facts. So that caller's out of line by sort of addressing me. And there's nothing wrong with me speaking as well on the things that I know at this moment in time. And for that caller to be saying that, I think is inappropriate. And I'm not trying to silence anybody, but this is what we're here for. We're supposed to be able to talk and discuss. Now, if you want to silence one person or a person because they have a different sort of idea about things, what are we really doing here? I mean, our whole basis of us being here is so that we all have a voice and we all can speak. But obviously, if somebody says something we don't like, we attack that person, which is not a surprise. It's biased, it's discriminatory, it quiets people. Let me help you out. I'm 100% Mexican. I'm Native American from Arizona. I know where I come from. I shouldn't have to tell my qualifications, but obviously, because I don't think exactly the way everybody else thinks, instead of trying to give me your point and to explain it to me, get me to think like you just want to attack me. I got it.
Okay, so I would like to, at this time, with the statement that we're making, I want to be very explicit and very clear and just get this drafted to a point where everybody can agree about it and then it can actually be voted on. I want this to be, as clear as we're, willing to be. Personally, my only frustration is not with any one individual, but I'll say this right now, it's with the entire commission as a whole. Right now, if we are going to, what I'm presenting that we do, what I asked to do as, somebody who is a part of the Black community, a longtime resident, what I'm asking to do is not unreasonable. It is not outside our purview, and I don't think that it should be treated with the level of distrust that is coming forward right now. And I don't think that it's any individual. So if we're open to having a discussion, my thought is that, what's going on, commissioners, do we agree that we are the Human Rights and Equity Commission? Do we believe that we are supposed to represent the disenfranchised communities of Bend? Do we believe that we are supposed to bring, accountability partners with the city when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to committees, when it comes to anything that questions equity and experience, and matters of discrimination, which we all, in order to be a commissioner, must believe exists. So we have a shared thought process that, if we do have a shared thought process, I am surprised to see how hard we are struggling, and how distrustful we seem to be around a statement from the Human Rights Commission about a boy who was gunned down on our streets. I have no individual issues, actually. I have an issue that this is, and I did not anticipate that this would be such a struggle for us to produce. So that is where I sit right now, and I'm more than willing to communicate that openly and freely. So what I'm going to do, frankly, from just a leadership perspective, is make sure we start drafting this right now. Scratch the idea of punting it to a smaller group, because it will be too slow. In order for us to do what needs to be done, we need a short, succinct, and clear acknowledgement right now that everybody can agree on and have faith in and sign on. Is that okay with anybody? Do we have any issues there? Okay.
Can I pull up my screen? And we actually go word for word in this thing? Is that allowed? Because I'm typing. I've been typing this whole time.
Yeah, from my perspective, Olivia, it's probably the best approach at this point. Yeah.
So Juan, does Olivia have permission to share her screen?
Yes, she does, Shelley. Commissioner, you should be able to click on share screen. Yep.
Thank you, Juan.
Yes, ma'am.
So we can have a discussion about wording. What I do know is what's important to me is that the race of this individual who was shot is mentioned. That is a fact. It happened. I feel that when the media and other people release statements that don't bring his race into a factor, who do not mention his race, it is disenfranchising to the entire BIPOC community, and it leads us to not feel safe. It leads us to question the power structures that are in place and make it more difficult for us to trust that they are going to handle it, because there is historical pain and historical harm, and that is factual. The racism in this country is factual. The power structures, mistreating Black people and people of color in general is factual. It's important that the city of Bend acknowledge that Barry was a Black man, a 22-year-old Black man, not a person, but a Black man who was killed in the street, because as a country, it is time for us to have a responsible approach to that. Now, whether his case has racial implications, whether it played a role into it, we can let the investigation continue on its own. I'm no way suggesting that we add to or try to put our own narrative at it, but I do want the factual statement of his race, because a young Black man came here and was killed after a month of attending college, period. And the facts of the case that have already been shared show that there is not a lot of explanation around it. There's not a lot of reason for it. And I'm sure we can let law enforcement and the DA's office do their job and figure out the deeper meanings of what's going on. I'm more than comfortable with that. But I also feel that to be solid communicators, to do our job, we must mention as the Human Rights and Equity Commission that he was a Black man who came here for college, who was killed on our streets, period. So like that, let's argue that point if somebody has an issue with that right now.
Can everyone read my screen? I can make that bigger, or I can read it aloud if there's like a visual barrier.
Olivia, I can see the screen and I can read it well.
Does anybody have any issues with that first point? Okay, Libby, what's the next thing that you feel like we should discuss?
The next line there. This should not have happened. And we can get more specific on this. I just left it general.
Okay, so that this should not have happened. Does anybody have any thoughts, or does anybody either want to support or detract from this being included?
Just because I don't want you to feel like you're alone speaking out there, I just want to confirm that the first two statements I am comfortable with. Jasmine, this is Jody.
Thanks, Jody. Anybody else? Okay, so moving to this murder detracts from the equity goals for the city of Bend and erodes trust within the BIPOC members of our community. Does anyone take issue with this statement?
Jasmine, I'm sorry, this is Megan. Can I interrupt really quickly? Has it been confirmed that Barry was a college student? I'm not sure that that's a confirmed fact. I just want to make sure.
So I've seen it in the media multiple times, but yes,
yeah,
it can be.
Okay. I mean, it's a small issue, but I just want to bring that up.
We will. I thank you, Megan. We'll fact check every piece of this against what's. The city will help us with that too. Ian is here to help and provide that support. This statement will go through like city's resources before it goes out anywhere.
Thank you. That's helpful to clarify. This is Jody again. I appreciate the level of screening we're doing with this just to make sure we've got our facts right. Thank you.
Jasmine, it's Shelley. I don't see any hands raised right now.
I have questions on the third line. I have put murder. I have put as I would like to get stronger with the language on what it does to our equity goals here. I would like to get stronger on the language of the trust that has now been completely eradicated by many members of our community. So if anyone has better wordsmithing, send it my way, please.
What I'm hoping is that we can feel secure in these statements and any wordsmithing that needs to happen. That's my hope. So if you are concerned that one of these statements wordsmithing, needs to have some certain level of parameters, I would like for you to speak up and let us know as we go through this, please. Otherwise, the assumption is that you're okay with us, making it sound better, but like keeping the intent of that statement.
Jasmine, I think the only issue I have with the erodes trust is that I don't fully believe our BIPOC community actually trusts the city right now. So we're not even at the level of trust yet, and it's just been totally demolished, that path to trust. So, and that's just from my perspective of community members I talk to. There's no expression of trust yet.
I will say that I feel that the first one better represents people on a spectrum, because obviously there are people who feel that they have no trust. And then there will be BIPOC people who have eroded trust. So ultimately, I am in agreement with finding something that makes sure we're allowing for the spectrum and that there's a general statement rather than something that forces everybody to be on one end of that spectrum, if that makes sense. Sherry?
And if I'm hearing correctly, maybe just to make it easier, I've separated those two statements. So now we have 5 statements. The first one is this murder erases the equity goals of the city of Bend. Again, erases might not be the right verb, but I want to make sure the word murder in particular is something that I can leave here.
Jasmine, Ian has his hand up. I'm sorry. I can see the hands that are raised, so just highlighting that.
Go ahead, Ian.
Thank you. This kind of follows up on Olivia's point. The commission can use the word murder if it wants. I think you should be conscious about, and some of you are thinking about that choice, and being conscious about that is important. I know many people feel this was a murder or know in their hearts it was a murder. The district attorney and a grand jury may consider it something else.
Frankly, I think we should just go to killing, Olivia. I'm gonna say that.
So that was going to be a suggestion. I mean, just to the extent that there's conscious consideration of this, that was something I wanted to raise.
Yeah, I feel that we should keep it within the parameters of never having to walk back, as different commissioners have said. We should not have to walk back anything, so keep it at killing. I just don't feel that that's something that we should be playing around with, because, you know, the credibility of this commission is incredibly important to me.
Okay,
Okay.
I've made changes to the third statement. The killing of Barry Washington Jr. negates the equity goals and equity progress of the city of Bend.
I was going to suggest detracts was my word that I was going to throw out there. People feel free to jump in on this. I'm going to say this, and this was my thought when it was originally brought up, Olivia, and so this was your point. And I know that Joseph had pushed back on this, but frankly, I'm not really interested, I guess, in including a lot of verbiage about the gun usage in the city of Bend. I do think that's too big of a beast to deal with at this point. And I think that it potentially does fall outside of the Human Rights and Equity Commission. And I'm more than willing to hear your extended thoughts on that.
I think mentioning gun violence will take away from what we're trying to say, which is the killing of Barry Washington, not so much the gun violence. I feel like that just distracts people to a totally different subject.
I agree.
Yeah.
And Joseph, I know something that was important to you. So, and ultimately, I agree with a lot of what you had to say as far as it being potentially politicizing something that I personally don't want to see politicized or to be minimized as much as possible. So feel free to jump in as well.
I believe Joe left.
Okay, so moving forward then. Is anyone else, I don't want to move forward, sorry. Does anybody else have thoughts on gun usage? Olivia, if you want to make a stronger case for it, then I'm more than willing to hear that too.
I would like to include it in our larger statement that comes, because I don't think anyone should be pulling out any weaponry on any street against any human being. But if this is going to be short, concise, to the point, focusing on the humanhood of Barry Washington, then yes, I think it's fine to exclude.
Anyone else have thoughts? I don't know, and I'm actually going to encourage the rest of our commissioners to jump in with your opinions. I would love for there to be an increase of participation.
This is Melissa. I'm okay with leaving the gun statement out in the initial statement.
This is Jody, Commissioner Stoffert. I agree. I would like to leave guns out of this one.
This is Kay. I also agree with that statement.
So then the next statement I have is around there not being any foundation of trust between many members of our community. Do we want to include something like this here? Would love some help.
This is Melissa. I appreciate what your thought process is. The language "no path," I think, might be a hair stronger than what we can say, because I don't know that that's true, that there's no path. It might be that the path is damaged, or the path is something impacted or damaged or something like that.
I'd like to second Melissa's comment. I don't believe that there's a non-existent platform or really any trust there. I know for a fact that it was damaged, like Melissa was saying, and there's a lot of work to do. But I do believe that there's still some individuals in our community that have some trust there. So for us to have a statement to say there is nothing, I think it's a little.
I'm really liking strains, the foundation of mutual trust. What are we thinking there? Strains.
I was
like
going to comment about the same thing about the foundation, the strains foundation. I think that's what we're trying to build, is a foundation, and now it just puts a huge burden and strain on us creating this foundation. So I like that choice a lot.
I would like to comment on I feel like disenfranchised. Maybe that's going to be an extension of a second sentence, but disenfranchising, a comment around safety, I guess, is what it is about our community members. And I feel like we might not necessarily need to have, now that we've already included the BILAPOC members, I feel there's also a room to just simply say, to have a statement around safety for the community at large. And maybe that is, implying or speaking about the gun violence that was done in our streets, but just not hyper focusing on it as much as just the general safety that is kind of lost or eroded, the disenfranchisement of the community.
This is Melissa again. When I think about a statement like this, I wonder if we could talk about, I know when I read statements like this, I feel, what can I do? Can we include a call to action or an action statement? Because I know a lot of folks that will read this that aren't a part of the BILAPOC community will say, what can I do? So could we think about what we could say to that? It's one thing to say what our position is. And I don't know, as a commission, if we have an idea, is that our role? I would like to see something to the effect of, if you're not impacted by this, find somebody that is and ask questions and try to understand. I look like I don't understand, but my son looks like Barry. It's hard. And so I think a statement to help other people be in another person's shoes is important.
Encourages like empathy. Also, something that I feel this community sometimes fails to do is to recognize the process of grief. So that could be something we're encouraging, Melissa, and making space for. We could encourage people to make space for the community who is in fact grieving, you know, without having any, you know, for the many ways that it affects us. There's a way to say this, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm blanking. But I really agree with the human rights and equity stepping up and providing a bit of direction.
Yeah, or
the action of the community.
yeah, something to do with the feels.
I absolutely agree with those things, Melissa, because empathy is what we notice when you look on social media is missing. When you're reading these comments about what's happened, and my concern with finding someone to ask questions is we cannot leave it up to the BILAPOC to do the work and to have the answers. Our community is really exhausted of having to try to amplify our voices. So I'm not quite sure if that's necessary to put in there, but I just don't want anyone to take that as, oh, let me go ask my only Black friend and re-trigger. This is traumatizing. Every time someone sees a picture, it's traumatizing. So I'm not quite sure if we want to do like a trigger warning before the statement. Because, you know, I know, Jasmine, you're going through a lot with this, and many people are too. And I just don't want to add more trauma by asking people to find someone that, you know, that you think looks like Barry to ask questions. I know that's not what you meant, Melissa, but that's just what's coming up right now.
No, that's absolutely a legitimate, super legit concern. And thank you for clarifying.
To be clear, I personally do not want to see a trigger warning on this statement specifically. This statement, this is already happening in the community. This right here is already happening. While I agree that we don't want to encourage people to do the work, what I do think is that we are the Human Rights and Equity Commission. And so we're filling a spot that is necessary, that is missing, frankly, in the experience of the media and everybody right now, the media and leadership right now. We haven't seen this yet. So I feel like as a Black community, like we're providing something that's missing in a situation that is already traumatizing. So, and there's a level of, we as the Human Rights and Equity Commission, we are leadership. So it is my choice to be here as a Black woman is to do the hard work to amplify. Now, other people who are not on the commission, they don't have to, that's not a position that they place themselves into. And so instead, we're doing this really hard work to amplify, to get this message out there, to fill a gap that is missing and has always been missing, and to provide a space. So I want this statement to really lead and provide something that I see as missing right now, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm comfortable with us. That's why I would be lean towards, I'm comfortable with us encouraging the community to listen and to provide space for those that are grieving, and to provide understanding when they see a candlelit vigil that, you know, we don't want to have a bunch of whatever coal rolled upon us. You know what I mean? Those people are grieving. You know, that's what I'm looking for, because I feel like the Human Rights and Equity Commission needs to take time to explain something that is not being explained, and needs to be the voice for the BILAPOC people that nobody is providing. No one's providing this level of like explanation of what's going on. And it is becoming more and more difficult, frankly, for me to like communicate what I think about this. But I'm going to keep powering through, and I apologize if if I become less succinct as we go through this.
Jasmine, you're doing a great job.
I've made some changes to that fourth statement on the call to action. Specifically, the Human Rights and Equity Commission encourages allies to show up. We can say show up to vigils, show up to rallies, marches, whatever. We can be more specific. Learn and listen to community members that are grieving. Any edits there? Any stronger words desired there?
I like it.
I do too. I was just, Melissa beat me to it, but I like it a lot.
And then a final wrap-up statement of the Human Rights and Equity Commission will be making a more extensive statement in the coming days as more information becomes public.
And I'm wondering here that the Human Rights and Equity, something more along the lines of, so maybe start a new line and like we'll see if it replaces it or if it's just the Human Rights and Equity Commission wishes to reinforce our commitment to providing accountability to our systems of power. What I want is kind of a final statement that at least is showing what the Human Rights and Equity Commission is here to do. So please, people jump in. I need your help at this point.
So the way I understand our role is to be the mediator or the pass through from the public to the city of Bend. And so maybe including language of stands by its role to partner with the public and represent them to the city of Bend or something like that.
Maybe to act as a liaison between the public and the city.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Thank you so much, Melissa.
I threw in the word amplify there, and that might not be the right one, so forgive me if I'm taking the liberties.
No, I personally like it.
Ian, your hand is up.
Yeah, on the second to last line about a more extensive statement in the coming days, I would suggest maybe considering as an alternative something like the HREC will be following this case as it develops, only because again, there may not be anything to talk about, or there may be multiple occasions in the future where there are things the HREC wants to say. So I think I just don't want you to paint yourself into a box of feeling like you have to say something, because there are a lot of unknowns about how this is going to develop over the coming weeks and months.
What if we say something like closely following the developments of this case in the coming weeks and months, like literally like that?
On that note, there was a point that came up earlier around, I think Sherry might have mentioned it, around showing up for the October 5th, I guess, arraignment or charges. Do we want to make any activation there?
One of the things I think that is kind of helpful too for us to think about this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, but from what I'm understanding, the City of Bend social media channels don't, at least at this time, don't release statements from their advisory committees. So instead, what this statement will be going on our Human Rights and Equity Commission. Likely, there's a potential chance that media might pick this up as well. And then what I would like to see done, and we could vote on this very clearly, is having this put onto like a social media graphic that each of the commissioners can also add throughout their existing channels in social media or however else you choose to communicate. So that's what we're looking at right now. So I don't know. I actually don't have thoughts on the October 5th part yet. But I feel that this right here that I'm looking at, I feel very comfortable, putting this on some sort of social graphic that has our sign and seal of approval and can be distributed everywhere. So anything else I'm missing, Ian, on how we're going to distribute this?
I don't think so. I think, I mean, this, I'm giving it sort of the preliminary review as you've been working on it. I think staff will take a look at it, maybe circle back with maybe Olivia and Jasmine if there are any questions or comments or suggestions that we're not thinking about now. And once it's finalized, I guess I'm assuming that the HREC as a whole approves this tonight. And then once it's finalized after that process, it would be posted, we think, on the AHREC bendoregon.gov site. And then individual commissioners are, of course, welcome to broadcast it, link to it, or do whatever you can to distribute it.
Do we currently have a quorum to vote on these components of our statement?
I can't, well, let me look. I think you had a comfortable quorum earlier.
Yeah, they do.
Counted, so.
Okay.
Just
I'm
because
just gonna welcome commissioners. I'm gonna welcome commissioners, counselors, city staff, anybody at this point to make any comments on this at this time.
Thanks,
I feel
Jasmine.
everybody's feedback is valuable.
Thanks, Jasmine. This is Jody. I just have a question for Ian or anyone who can answer this. So I'm going to show my ignorance with this. Is it okay that we vote on this without the full commissioner group here? And if we approve it, is it okay that this is on behalf of the, I guess I just need some clarification on that. I'm okay with it, but I just don't know the rules.
It is. If you've got a quorum, which you still do, you take action. The commission can take action anytime it has a quorum, and it takes action by a majority of those present. So if you've got 7, for example, you've still got a quorum, and it would only take 4 voting one way to do something. So yes. Is it relevant that not everybody's here and hasn't had an opportunity to participate? It could be, but it doesn't impair the commission's ability to actually vote and take action as long as there's a quorum.
I want it noted that there are several who aren't on here who I value their input and feedback on. I just want it noted that I'm concerned that we don't have. I think there's at least, at my count, there's at least 4 or 5, unless I'm counting wrong, that aren't on here. So it just makes me uncomfortable to vote on something with that many people missing.
Including our vice chair as well too. So
Jody, does this make you uncomfortable if it's not wrong or illegal?
Thank you for that clarifying question. It doesn't make it just makes me uncomfortable that there are 4 commissioners, including our vice chair, that aren't going to have a voice in this vote tonight.
Yeah, I feel that pull too. I'm just concerned about waiting.
I understand that. I hear that for sure. Yep.
And I hate to press the matter, but I do want to go to the vigil and respect the family. And if we are not going to vote, I am going to hop off. But I do share the sentiments of not everyone is here, especially our vice chair is not here, who is also a leader. And but I do feel that this is kind of urgent as well. So I'm going to follow the lead of what everyone here wants to do. But I do want to say that I do want to like leave pretty soon.
Okay, so everybody,
Considering Jasmine.
everybody, commissioners, I hear your discomfort. I frankly don't feel uncomfortable about it at all, but I understand where you're coming from. However, I am going to encourage us to have a vote because I think the urgency of this matter far outweighs outweighs the necessity for this far outweighs our caution. I think that caution is kryptonite in this situation. So Sherry, I do want it to vote, and let's move that forward. Unless people, I am willing to know everybody's concerns, but as long as it's not outside the parameters and Ian is okay with it, I want this statement in front of the city. So I would like to push it to a vote, and then you're more than willing to, vote against having this released, but I want to have a vote.
And if I can jump in, sorry, real quickly, if the commission approves this and moves forward, once we get it dressed up and ready to post, we could probably add a note to go to Jody's concern about the composition of, we could note the numbers or who was here and who didn't have an opportunity to participate, if that was important to provide context for how we got here.
Another thing too that I just popped up in my head, is it possible if we via email allowed them to vote on the statement without being able to contribute or work on a working document? Can they vote on, can we have an email vote on something that they at least have eyes on and we're able to contribute a vote to?
I feel like everybody knows what I'm going to say. That's problematic, I think. So there's not really a good way to do that if somebody's not in the public meeting or attending.
What if we release everything to public record preemptively? In this email chain, I mean, I don't know.
Good idea. Interesting idea. Still, I don't think gets around the fact that having people weigh in essentially on their own time is probably deliberating outside of the public meeting. So that's still, I think, a barrier.
I really appreciate this conversation and Jasmine asking. I think it just is incumbent upon all commissioner members to make this a priority to be at these commission meetings, because you could miss out on some key things. So I'm comfortable going forward with the vote, but it impresses upon me the importance of making this a priority in our schedule if we're going to be serving.
Thank you, Jody. Ultimately, that's how I feel about it. That these meetings need to be prioritized because you will in fact miss out on important work that we have to do. But I feel like we should not, the work that we have to do cannot be stopped by, many people's legitimate constraints in being here. So that's my thought. And I know that's my opinion, and I'm willing to stand by that opinion, but of course, I understand the flip side of it as well.
Adrian.
Real quick, I really like the added notes of attendance. I think, in my opinion, that helps me feel a little bit better about the fact that our statement is not as a whole. And the people that are not here have the ability to also form their own thoughts in the future if we do proceed to give further statements and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is definitely something we can improve upon, along with everything else that this commission is building. Are we prepared? I motion that we vote now.
Can I just add one little comment about the attendance? I am okay with the attendance being included as long as it's super clear that the names that aren't on there were not explicitly disagreeing, because I don't think that's fair either. Yeah, thank you. I like that language much better.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that thought. I think that's very important.
And kudos to Olivia for like just in time kind of adjusting. So we
Olivia, you're amazing. Like
Totally.
this is actually really impressive. Couldn't have happened without you.
Yes.
I love this stuff.
she's like
not
putting our
this, just
thoughts.
typing.
She's like putting our thoughts on paper before we have a chance to say it. It's great. Thank you.
I am not a fan of okay, so I would like to vote quickly on this content warning, because this is something we're going to vote on, the anti-Black violence. I personally don't want it in this particular statement. So I don't know if somebody wants, I can't honestly remember, and guys, again, forgive me. I can barely remember what's happening right now. So but if somebody wants to kind of discuss that, but I see we have a vote on this note on there. So I would like to vote on that first, and then let's vote on the statement as a whole. And it looks like other than that, we're just confirming that he was in fact a college student and not just like a Bend resident.
Yes, that was the only thing I italicized.
Okay, so Ian, do I have to motion for every vote that I have, or do I just suggest that we vote and get through this?
I think maybe a motion to approve the statement as presented would be sufficient.
To approve it for a vote, or I'm just gonna say.
I think you could just ask for a motion. How about this? Motion to approve the statement as presented, and to have maybe Jasmine and Olivia work with city staff to do any final review and confirmation before it's posted.
Okay, a motion to approve this final statement as presented with clearance for Olivia and Commissioners Olivia and Jasmine to work with city staff to make any minor changes that are necessary.
And
Someone
probably
want a second?
Crow. Sorry, second, but probably also Crow. Right.
Agreed. That's perfectly, sounds good to me.
Second.
And one of the other options for helping us fix this whole, we feel like there needs to be more eyes on this, is we could decide right now less than a quorum of the individuals who will be looking at this, and we could ask for our co-lead, our co-chair and our co-lead to be put on the less than a quorum group that is finalizing this with the city, so that we know they had eyes on it. So I'm gonna right now I'm gonna recreate my motion. Here we goes. I would like to motion that this statement as presented, become the official statement of the HREC following city staff and Commissioners Olivia, Commissioner Mitchell, and Commissioner Crow, and myself working to have it, to finalize any minor changes to the language.
Second.
Jasmine, this is Shelley. Is there any way that we could maybe ask Olivia to stop sharing, and then maybe we can see who's making the motion, because I can't quite tell. I'm sorry, I haven't memorized all your voices perfectly yet.
Okay, I made the motion. And Kay seconded.
Okay, thank you.
And now do you just need us all to vote?
Yes.
Can I get you to use your hand raise icon for yays? And then nays?
So just for the record, it looks like everyone raised their hand for the yays, and I don't see any hands raised for the nays.
Okay, statement passed. Congratulations.
So logistically, what am I able to do? Can I only include this language with those 4 people plus city advisement in an email?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, then I can, well, Jasmine, what is your preference here? Do you want yourself, Mo, Crow, and myself to first finalize verbiage and then send to city, or just have everyone on a single thread?
I would like everybody on a single thread. It's gonna be faster.
Okay.
Is that okay, Ian?
Yes, that's fine. We can use a Word document and get it where it needs to be. I personally don't think it will require that much time or work, but it'll be good.
Thanks, Ian, for providing that preliminary look for us. Okay, so I'd like to go to updates, staff updates. Is that correct? I think that's the biggest priority.
Yeah, that's the next agenda item if you'd like to move into that. And then maybe after each agenda item, you can decide what direction you're going to take next based on the 20 minutes we have left. So.
Oh, and also commissioners, I would like to thank you very much for your emotional support and your contributions to this statement. I know that this is, highly emotional. I want to thank everybody for being vulnerable, for speaking up, for giving me space, even as your chair, to feel what I needed to feel. I can feel your support and I appreciate it. And thank you so much for helping produce this statement. It means a lot to me. All right, so let's move forward at this time.
So I have two staff, well, actually we have 2 staff updates on the agenda. The first is I wanted to provide this group with a verbal update on the Equity and Inclusion Director. As you all know, we have had a search out for this position, and I want to start by thanking those who participated in the interview panel on August 27th from the commission, which included Commissioner Wilder, Commissioner Mitchell, Commissioner Solomon, Commissioner Saffert, and then also Councilor Schenkelberg. And also to those who attended the meet and greet with both of the final candidates later in the day. It was a long day, and I just want to thank everyone. Everyone who participated was able to provide their feedback both verbally through the debrief, but also through an online confidential survey. After the interviews on the 27th and the debrief session, there were some further questions. And so we brought together a representative from each of the panels. So there were 3 panels as part of the interview process. The first panel was the Human Rights and Equity Commission members and community stakeholders. The second panel was made up of the internal DEIA task force, the city. And the third was panel leadership within the city. And after all of those interviews and the process, I am absolutely pleased to announce that Anna Allen has been selected as our new and first Equity and Inclusion Director for the City of Bend. And Anna will be starting with the city on October 18th. Anna's pronouns are she and her, and I'm going to just briefly give you a bio from her words, her feedback to you. Anna is a member of the Shoshone and Bangkok tribe from Fort Hall, Idaho. She comes to the city with more than a decade of experience working with diverse communities throughout Oregon. Her career began with developing and delivering culturally responsive nonprofit programs and services in Central Oregon and in Portland. From there, Anna worked for more than 6 years as a policy and engagement advisor to Multnomah County Chair Deborah Kufori. Her areas of focus included advancing DEIA initiatives, tribal policy, COVID-19 response outreach and engagement, restructuring the Office of Community Involvement, developing the Racial Impact Assessment Tool, and elevating community input through Multnomah County's decision-making process. Anna shares that she's a mother of a strong-willed 1-year-old, and in her free time, she and her family enjoy camping, cooking, and all things art, archery, and watching their newest member learn and explore the world. In this position, as you all likely know, Anna will promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility initiatives citywide. She will be your staff liaison and will provide leadership and coordination to the city's overall equity work plan. She will be overseeing a team which includes the future accessibility and equity manager, as well as 2 existing positions, a part-time administrative support specialist, and the city's events and volunteer program manager. So Anna will be at your October monthly meeting, and will transition over the coming months with a tremendous amount of support from both, I think, all of you, and as well as internal staff and members of our community. I have no doubt that Anna has the Human Rights and Equity Commission at the top of her priority list, and I look forward to assisting her in the transition, which will be smooth, hopefully, and intentional on our part. So the official announcement was made, broadcast today. You should have received an email, and I just want to again thank the many members of the commission that were an active part of this process, and for all your input, your engagement, and energy around this. And just wanted to ask if there are any questions regarding that update. Okay.
I'll just simply add to that comment that I'm really excited to have Hannah join the team, and I think that it will give us appropriate, having the director come on is going to give us appropriate, speed and a lot of necessary strength to what our goals are here.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Councillor Perkins has an update as well, and so she wanted to provide you all with some information and an invitation. So, Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, one of the things that we do in our work session every once in a while is have an update from a committee or commission. And we thought with Anna coming on board, it would be a really great idea for us to do a brief little work session introducing Anna to the full council, and also hearing from the Human Rights and Equity Commission about what your plans are, how things have been since you've started, how you see your goals sort of forming. And it would be we were hoping to do this at the November 6th, is it, Shelley? I don't know the right.
Sorry, I think it's November 3rd.
November 3rd. So that's the first Wednesday in November. And our work session usually starts at 5 o'clock. Again, this would just be like 15 minutes or so. And Reed and I really just think that it'd be really great to, for the rest of the council to hear from all of you and to hear what you've been doing. And that also gives Anna a chance to have one, full meeting with you as the Human Rights and Equity Commission. And just wanted to invite you all to participate.
Thanks, Megan.
So I guess maybe Chair Wilder, maybe for the next meeting or I think soon, maybe you could put that on your agenda to decide how you would want to prepare for that work session.
Sorry, yes, absolutely. We will add that to the agenda to make sure that we have some sort of like game plan in place. And yeah, thank you. We would love to participate. Actually, feels timely, so thank you. So roundtables, basically, I think would be the next most important thing to me. And we only have about 12 minutes. We're definitely not going to be able to get to the action plan review. I'm going to just ask in this meeting that you've received sample action plans. If we could take some time to really review those, because that is an incredibly important part of what we need to do. We could take some time over this next month to review those, knowing that that will be a huge priority on our next agenda. I'd appreciate that. Also, I think we'll go ahead and skip the update from the communications working group. We already are missing Commissioner Mitchell. And I think Commissioner Dudo has a lot currently that's been put on her plate. So let's move to roundtable updates. And if everybody spends 2 to 3 minutes doing their update, I believe we'll be okay to wrap up this meeting on time. Let's begin with me. Okay, so I was a part of the Equity and Inclusion Director process. I'm disappointed that Commissioner Mitchell and who do we have? Shireen is also missing. Oh, Jody, you are here. We were involved in an all-day, the 4 of us were involved in an all-day, we served on a community panel with another participant from another advisory group, advisory committee. We spent all day, I'm not gonna remember the exact date, but about a month ago or a few weeks ago, going over one of the final pieces of the interview process with 2 incredible candidates. Ultimately, one of our participants withdrew officially. I don't know if everybody is aware of that, but withdrew from the process formally. And luckily, we're in a situation where we had 2 really amazing candidates. And I do know that Anna's, commitment to this role is very, there. She's going to be a long, sustainable employee, and I am excited to begin that work. So Jody, I think that the Human Rights and Equity Commission might have thoughts on hiring processes from what we witnessed and what we participated in. Ultimately, I feel the Human Rights and Equity Commission got to be there and, fight and present our opinions, not fight, is that the right word? Got to discuss, present our opinions, and let our voices be heard and amplify the desires and goals of this commission. I also think that, Commissioner Mitchell was here. Ultimately, we have some thoughts, and we would like to weigh in the future on the hiring process of the city, because that is just something that needs probably more accountability and visibility. But ultimately, working with the HR department of Bend was a pleasure, and I'm glad that we got to participate and be a part of that. Jody, please jump in and give us your thoughts.
Thank you, Jasmine. The only other, I'm happy to hear that that was news to me that the other candidate had dropped out. So thank you for that clarification. I was curious about that. So thank you. That was good. It was a really pleasure to participate and be able to do that. Those of you who know me know I have an HR background, so I too was sitting there saying, okay, I would have done this differently or that, but it was really well done. And there were just a couple of things that I would give as feedback in the future that doesn't need to be part of this record at this moment. But I agree with Jasmine, there's some opportunity, but we all have opportunity and that's what we're here for. So I appreciated that, having the opportunity to do that and the rich dialogue and the thoughtfulness of it. And it was a great part to be part of because I was a leader in an organization in town. It actually informed me and helped me in my organization as well. So when you give, you get back. So I encourage all of you when the city or someone gives you an opportunity to participate that you think about that, because when you give, you usually get back as well. So just thank you to the city to involving us.
Also, Olivia and myself were invited to be a part of the hiring panels for the outreach manager interview process. So Olivia, I'm gonna let you take over because you're really the only one who's participated.
Yeah, sure. So there are 2 rounds at play. I was involved in the round last week with about 6 candidates from, like Anne was mentioning, a massive pool of 70 for this role. I was really encouraged by the diversity and background that made it to this I guess second round or third round technically. At this point, Jasmine will be involved in what we're hoping, although not guaranteed, is a final round of interviews, I guess Thursday, tomorrow.
It's Friday.
Right? Oh, Friday. And from there, we should be hearing more details on who our liaison will be with the communications department of the city of Bend. I'm really looking forward to any of the candidates that we end up getting to work with.
And next time when we do an update for this, we will give better detail on what the outreach manager is. We don't have time for that, but we need to do that. I personally was able to identify that it was going to be an incredibly important role that we would be working with closely from HRAC. So that's important. So let's move on to welcoming week. This is important. Melissa, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you to Joanne, Mina, and the team at Emerge for including us. And thank you also to Kay. I know Kay was there, and Jasmine, and Lamar, and Sherry. It was different than what we thought it would be. Kay and Jasmine, if you want to share what your experience was, my breakout session was just networking. There wasn't anyone from the community there. However, we did hear from one member of the community some challenges, significant challenges, and some insight into her struggles with housing, which I thought was really valuable. I informally would like to suggest that after this learning experience, I do realize I threw this together on all of you, like at the last minute, like, oh my gosh, the application's due in a week. I'm going to throw us in there. Let's think about next year, because I think we could have our own event and really be robust. But if any of you that attended a breakout session would like to speak, I just want to thank you all for tolerating my ample emails. So Kay or Jasmine, if you want to talk about your session, be great.
I was just going to agree. I thought that it was definitely different than what we thought, but there's a lot of potential in this event. So we should plan for next week. I also want to encourage, I think another thing that we did learn is that we do need to be responding. And even if it's to say, I don't have the capacity or the ability to be a part of this, it's just respectful of commissioners' time when they invest in our volunteering to go out on something. Let's make sure that we as a group are communicating back where we're at and responding to those emails, because they take work and they take effort, and it is very appreciated. So I want to thank you, Melissa, for being a guinea pig on something that was so interactive. And I know we're going to get better and grow as a group in this kind of space, but I want to acknowledge that that is something that we can grow in. I honestly don't have anything more to add to the welcoming week, except for that we should prep in the future and have our own event. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa, and thank you for everyone that partook in that. And I really like the takeaway for myself of responding when I am over capacity. I definitely should have said, hey, I can't make it. Noted for future.
Okay, feel free to weigh in on that or move on to giving us an emergency homelessness task force update.
I don't think I have anything to add. Unfortunately, we didn't have anyone in our breakout room, so I just hope for maybe a bit more planning. And Melissa, that's not on you. It was very, like you did the best that you could, and it was great. You did a really good job. So yeah, just hoping that we can plan more in the future. For the EHTF, we met on August 31st. It was a lot of individual work. We heard an update on the authorized encampment update, which if anyone has followed the news, there's a lot of public comment about that. So 2 sites identified, they're talking with stakeholders, property owners, community outreach. So they're working on that. They're taking forth a lot of negative comments too. So if you support them, I would encourage to support your city councilor and Carolyn Egan and Colleen Thompson, who are just amazing, incredible. They're doing really great work. So we do a lot of individual work, like I said. We identified members, mandates, rules, funding, gaps, and similarities. And so we just kind of got to see where everyone was, what people can do, and how to band together. And something that I really appreciated was addressing the lack of accountability that fell from the last plan falling through. So we're going to address that in our next meeting. And Brittany Manzo is going to put together everything we worked on in our Miro boards and come up with our strategic plan next session. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all next time. But yeah, just keep following along. There's a lot of buzz around managed camps, and I urge people to do research just to see what it's about instead of jumping to conclusions.
Thanks, Kay. And then one final roundtable update from Commissioner Elizabeth.
Yeah, thanks. I will make this very short and sweet. The Sounding Board to House Our Neighbors is working on putting out a story map that will be on their webpage that offers up a lot of information about the different types of shelter options that they are working on writing code for. So this gives the community opportunity to see what the different types of shelters are that are being proposed. And it also has an interaction, like an interactive portion with several questions for folks to weigh in some information themselves so that they can, collect some data from the community and actually get some input back from community members about such things as size and parking spaces and these sorts of things that the community, is wanting to put forth some information on. So with that being put together right now, our next sounding board meeting for this month actually has been canceled. So I'm waiting to find out when the next meeting will be put forward. So that's it.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you to all commissioners who are serving our community in different ways, on different committees and on different initiatives. We really appreciate you. We could not do this without you. I want to open it up for final thoughts from any of our commissioners about what was talked about today, or thoughts or feelings before we go ahead and adjourn. And then I also want to just give that final reminder to be taking a look at those sample action plans, so that can be a large priority of our next meeting.
I have just a quick thing. I just want to thank Shelley for your support. And as you're preparing to transition that liaison role, I just want you to know that I don't think we have an inkling of how much time and effort you've put into helping us. And so I just really want you to know that you're appreciated and we'll miss you.
You're here.
Thank you, Shelley. We appreciate you. And
Work
we'll
with
miss you desperately.
Kay and Olivia have their hands up too.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Thank you, Shelley. I can only imagine what you go through all the time. So you've been incredible to work with. So thank you. And I just want to address that Joe did leave the meeting. So if we could acknowledge that next meeting and maybe talk about group norms and how we talk to each other, just because it felt very hostile to the point where he obviously left. So if we could just kind of talk about that and process that next meeting if there's time, just a suggestion.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, who gets to leave is kind of angering me. But yeah, my ending thought is this was really exhausting, and so I want us all to take care of ourselves. And if we're exhausted after 2 hours, I can't even imagine the level of just destruction that's happening with the Washington family right now. So
I was thinking, I feel obviously open to like feedback. I'm sure I can always lead stronger or better. It's never my desire to present that I wasn't interested in like communicating or that I rolled my eyes. I mean, I didn't think I did. I just feel like I have big eyes and I looked up, but that's fine. So I feel like for me, from a position of leadership, I wanted to say that I welcome feedback and thoughts about better ways to communicate, better ways to lead this group, better ways to create, pathways of trust. And obviously this work will always be uncomfortable, and it's fine for people to feel like pressure or unrest. Like that's part of this job. But ultimately, I am more interested in being effective than I am about my personal feelings ever. And I'm fully prepared to like walk that path. So I think my thought from this was just simply, I want you to know that as your chair, I'm definitely open to thoughtful, constructive criticism about how these types of things can be led in a productive and meaningful way.
Jasmine, I appreciate that. One of the key things with any team, like Kay was talking about, is to have those group norms, but those norms aren't just on you, they're on all of us as commissioners to hold them up. So I really like that idea, because if we have an involvement in making those norms, we have a responsibility to follow them as well, and not just on you.
yeah, and I think next time I would love to bring up some of the conversations that were had in the communication subgroup, because we outlined a lot of the norms that hopefully will be wrapped up in like a formal commitment statement, so we know what each and every one of us is signing on to and up for.
That's true. I'm excited. I almost forgot that we did, in fact, talk about a lot about that. And it also had a lot of accountability built into it, where we were going to allow, and make sure people are signing up to also kind of be taught and coached by one another in a way that, and be receptive to that. Any final thoughts? I don't want to continue to hold us longer than necessary, but also recognize that there might be things that need to be said. Go ahead.
Nothing more, just thank you for tonight.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank all of you. All right, let's officially adjourn then. Have a wonderful evening. See you again soon.